This is asking for the length of AB. Now to find the length of AB, we have to know the circumference of the whole circle. And the way I reminded you about this is, just imagine if you knew that the circumference of a circle was, say, 20. All right, and you wanted 90 degrees of it. Let's say this is a 90-degree angle here. And you want 90 degrees. Well, you would say, oh, well, that's 1/4 of the circle, so that's easy. 1/4 of the circle is just 5. Okay, you're doing the same thing here. You're taking a fraction of the circle, except for you weren't noticing. When you looked at this, you said, oh, that's 1/4 of the circle. You could see it. You can't really see. This one's a little bit more than 1/4. But what you're really doing is 90 over 360. See how it reduces to 1/4. And that's how you did that in your head. You weren't aware you were doing it because your brain works so incredibly well. It's such an amazing organ that God has given you. Okay, so you just remember that. You got to start with the whole circumference. And we had the whole circumference being 40 that time. Well, we don't know the circumference of this circle over here. So the first thing we have to do is find the circumference. So we remember that C is equal to pi times D. Okay, and D here is not 17, that's the radius, it's 34. So we've got 34 pi equals C. And so you just punch that into your calculator. 34 pi is equal to 106.8. 814. 106.8. And that's in centimeters. Okay, now this is a length measure, so it's not going to be centimeters squared. Now, we want to know just this fraction, which is 108 degrees out of 360. Now, I'll show you two ways to do this. You want that fraction of the circumference, and you can remember that of always means multiply. And you could work it this way. So you say 108 divided by 360 equals, and then multiply that by 106.8. And you get 32.04. Or you could set it up as a proportion. And you could say 108 is to 360 degrees in the same way as you found the circumference of the whole circle. So you're going to line this up with the 360 degrees. 106.8 is to x. Okay, and then you're going to cross multiply. 360x is equal to 108 times 106.8. And that's 11534.4. I don't care which way you do it. Whichever way works for you is fine with me. I'll teach you as many different ways as I can so that you have the greatest chance of understanding. You still get 32.04. Okay, whichever one makes the best sense to you, whichever one works in your mind, is the one you want to use. And if you want to do it by formula, you can use the formula that's in the book. Okay, moving on to the circumference of F. All right, this is similar but backwards to this because we don't know the circumference. And probably the easiest way to work this one is using proportion, but you don't have to. Okay, it says this length is 64 inches. Okay, and this is one way to work it. 64 inches, and we don't know what the circumference is. We can call it C if we want, the whole circumference. Is to, which fraction of the circle is it? 210 degrees out of 360. Okay, when you work this one as a proportion, you get 64 times 360 equals 23,040. And we get 210C. And then you divide by 210 to get C by itself, and we get 109.7. And our reality check tells us that's got to be pretty close because 64 inches, we're going to go all the way around, it's going to be somewhere around 110. Okay, the other way to work this problem is to say, I know that 210 degrees out of the whole 360 degrees of the circumference gave them 64 inches. Okay, so I can multiply, or I can go ahead and divide that out and say 210 divided by 360 is 0.583 C. And then divide both sides by 0.583, 109, excuse me, not 109, 64 divided by 0.583 is equal to 109.7. Okay, some of you still won't like it that way. Some of you would rather go from, some of you would rather go from this equation. You will want to say, what is 210 divided by 360? And you'll say, oh, it's 0.583. Oh, I already did that. I'm sorry, that's not how you'll want to do it. Some of you will not want to do it that way. You'll want to do it this way. You'll want to say 360 over 210. And you might even want to knock off those zeros. And you'll want to multiply both sides by that. 36 over 21. Some of you will reduce it even more than that. When you get 36 over 21 over here, let me erase this and try it again because that didn't come out so beautiful. 36 over 21. Then what you're going to do is multiply 36 times 64 and then divide by 21. And you will get, guess what? 109.7. So that's 3 different ways you can work that problem. Okay, let's erase that. Alright, now we have, we don't know this angle here. So, we're supposed to find the measure of GH here. In this case, we don't know the angle, and that's what measure always means. The measure of the arc, when they put an M in front of it, they don't want to know the length of it. They want to know the degree measurement of it. Okay, so to find this one, we're going to have to find the circumference of the whole circle first, which remember is pi times d, or since the radius is 27, 27 times 2 is d, which is 54. So this is 54 pi. And we can multiply out 54 pi. And we get 169.6. Okay, now we know that some number of degrees, x, out of 360 times the whole circumference, which is 169.6, is going to give us 35 feet. Okay, that's one way to work it, in which case we're going to multiply both sides by 360. And that makes this cancel. And we get 35 times 360 over on the other side. And we get 12,600. And then over here, we're going to write this so that it looks more algebraic. We're going to write 169.6x. And then we're going to divide both sides by 169.6. Each person will look at this a little bit differently, which is why I show you so many different ways to do it. And they're going to get, it's 74 degrees, 74.229, so 74.3 degrees. And so they've got 0.277. And they took it all the way out to the hundredths place. It doesn't tell us what we have to do. All right, let's look at another way to do it. We could set it up as a proportion. We could say, well, let me make this eraser a little bit bigger so I can erase everything. Oh, let's see. We could say 30, whoops, I can write with that. Okay, 35 feet is to 169.6 as some number of degrees that we don't know yet, x, is to 360. And then we would get 169.6x is equal to 35 times 360. And we get 600, sorry. Divide both sides by 169.6. And we get 74.29. Now I'm willing to bet that they did it a different way entirely in the book. Those are two very easy ways that I see of doing it. You can look in the book and see the different ways that they teach it. Usually